How about that? That's
okay. Going live. Counting down a 1, going live 2, 3. You're live, and hello, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And we're going to have a great show for you tonight. And we're just going to do our best and better than we always have, and better than we will anytime.
I don't know about that, about future events, but you know, we're going to do our dead level best to give you a good evening. And we say thank you all for coming, and cheers everybody, and blessings to all.
That's right. After I kind of flubbed that one up. Well, thank you and welcome. And thank you, my co-host, David Null, Hawkeye Two Feathers. Thank you for joining me tonight on this wonderful journey that we are going to take through the years and years of past and present and future. And we're going to dive deep, way back in the day, into religion of the Indians.
So we're gonna get on the Wayback Machine, eh, Mr.
The Wayback Machine. That's right.
The Wayback Machine.
We're going in the way back, and tonight I got a couple of books here. One is Famous Indians. It's an old book from 1843 that I'm going to be referring to, and I got a history book. Believe it or not, a history book that actually talked about Indian religion. That isn't politically correct. And it's from Bancroft's History of the United States, Volume 3, printed in, what did I say, 1840 or something, 1844 or something like that. Yep. It was.
It's
in Boston. Yeah. Yeah, it's really old. The page 1841. This book was made when the Indians were still roaming the plains, and they were having those trappers out there trapping, and what do you call the rendezvous? You know, Kit Carson was out there at one of those rendezvous with the Indians when this book was being printed. Go figure. So anyway, we're short on a crowd tonight. Witchy Moon decided to join us. I think everybody is over at Ryder Lee's with his wonderful show. He's got a really good guest over there tonight. So I don't blame you if you're out there checking him out, but go over to Ryder Lee's. He's always supported my channel, and go check him out. He's got a guy on there talking about UFOs tonight, which we'll talk about sometime soon too. So, but tonight, as always, I am bringing you some good stuff. And of course I got slides, and who wouldn't want to have slides? Because that's the thing. Slides. People
we can
like
slide through history.
That's right. We're gonna start out with a little bit on the screen here. Oh, I gotta share screen.
Slip sliding away.
That's right. Okay. There we go. There we go. Native American. Believe it or not, people, there is not much about Native American religion out there from the way back. And it says Native American religion, religious beliefs and sacramental practices of the indigenous people of the North and South America. Until the 1950s, it was commonly assumed that the religions of the surviving Native Americans, notice surviving, were little more than curious anachronisms, dying remnants of a humankind childhood. These traditions lacked sacred texts and fixed doctrines or moral codes, and were embedded in societies without the wealth, mostly without writing, and without recognizable systems of politics or justice, or any of the unusual or the usual indicators of a civilization. Today, those situation has changed dramatically. Scholars of religion, students of the economical or ideological sciences, and individuals committed to expanding and deepening their own religious lives have found that these traditions, many distinct and varied religious worlds that have struggled to survive, but the retained ability to inspire. The histories of these worlds also marked by loss. 500 years of political, economic, and religious domination have taken their toll. Scholars note when complex ceremonies became extinct, but often community members mourn even more the disappearance of small daily rituals and the religious vocabularies and grammars embedded in traditional language, an erosion of memories that included not only formal sacred narratives, but the midrid of informal standards. So
Wait, before
Yeah.
you go off of that,
yes,
they that have struggled to survive, but they retain the ability to inspire. Now, that's one of the things when they took away their ceremonies,
Mhm.
their inspiration went with it.
Yes, that did. But I think that was the whole purpose of it, because
Yeah.
I don't think the government, or as it says in there, it was the people coming over, they had the Bible and they
Right.
went by the Bible. That was their text, that there was a script. You could give the Bible to anybody and send them out to be a religious man, just like that. And you could convert them and say, this is what it says in the good book.
Right.
You know, go by that. Anything else is bull crap, yada, yada, yada. They brainwashed thousands of people, sent them out to do the thing. And they went to the Indians, and the Indians were like, what? You know, and to them, this was like crazy. They didn't understand. And we're going to go back in time to way back. This is way back when. And I found this.
Let me add something here, right?
Yes.
Let me interrupt you a second.
No, go ahead.
And it was the good book. And because it was written down, it freaked them out.
Yes.
Because everything that they had was oral tradition and handed down.
Yes.
And
yes.
so their everyday ceremonies or whatever, it was a way of life.
Yes.
Their religion is their life.
Exactly.
Which the government and people to this day still don't understand. Okay, I'm done.
They don't. So we're gonna go in this book, this little book about the Great Indians, printed in 1840s. We're gonna go to the first Peruvians, which would be the Incas, and how did they get to be? And which might lead us to why they have a different religion or religious beliefs than we kind of know. And it says the Peruvian traditions inform us that about 3 centuries, which we're going to go into this more since I got this cool book another day. But I'm trying to put a point together here. So the Peruvian traditions inform us that about 3 centuries prior to the arrival of the Spanish conquistadors, there was a period when the inhabitants of the country were still in the rudest and most barbarous state of existence. There suddenly appeared on one of the islands of Lake Titicaca 2 persons clothed and dressed in cotton, calling themselves the children of the sun, and declaring that they were sent by their beneficent parent, who beheld with pity the miseries of human race to reclaim, instruct, and guide them. And of course, historians go on, and they have exercised great ingenuity in their conjures to who the mysterious persons could have been, whether they were native Peruvians, and enlightened by their own sanctity, or immigrants from a region of America, or more civilized or shipwrecked inhabitants of the Eastern continent. On these points and traditions of the country give us no information. But it's saying what I'm trying to get at is these 2 people just mysteriously showed up wearing clothes, which, made of cotton, which is unusual. And they were calling themselves the children of the sun. And they had knowledge, and they brought plenty of knowledge to these barbarians. They gave them writing, and they gave them, knowledge to build things and waterways and plant crops and things like that. Well, of course, like anything else, things went badly. Hang on a second. I got to find this. It killed and who did not count it. Every consistent Peruvians were Where did I put this? I had it here. Hang on, it's going to take me. Oh, here it is. I made a mark in here so I could find it. Okay, so as the years went on, these Incas who were descendants of those two, they made a great society. And like all great societies, they were infiltrated by the Spanish. And we know what happened with the Spanish. They came, the conquistadors, and they devastated the Aztecs. And it was like they had a plan. Every time they went somewhere, they got the ruler, held him for ransom, and made him fill up a room full of gold. And just like all the rest, they came to Peru, to the Incas, and they captured their leader and held him for ransom. And they filled up a room full of gold. And of course, in the end, they killed him anyway. But I am going to give you the prelude of the capture and how they justified it in their terms. Now, needless to say, this ruler, this king, does not, according to the words they're writing here, does not seem very dumb. He seems really enlightened and smart, as you'll hear by his words. And I am going to share the screen so you have a visual of what is going on. Okay. Okay, so here it says, the Spanish historian, in order to facilitate a conduct with Pizarro. Now we're with Pizarro. He's with this. He's the leader. He's a Spanish conquistador. I'm sure you've all heard of Pizarro. If you haven't, go look him up. They were capturing this guy, Atapua. Okay. They were thinking he was going to have a big attack on the Spaniards. He brought 8,000 men with him, all dressed in gold and silver. He marched in with 400 servants to attend to him. And as you can see, here he is. He was being carried, leading his warriors, all dressed up in their native garb. And Pizarro decided that he was going to confront the leader after, he got there. The leader came to Pizarro. Pizarro had set up a little encampment, and the leader came down to him. Okay, the religious farce had been projected by the Spaniards in an induction to their work of treachery. As soon as the Inca had taken his post in the square, a friar named Valverde, chaplain to the expedition, advanced to the throne with a crucifix and a breviary and began a formal homily explaining to the Peruvian sovereign the history of the creation of the world and the fall of man, the doctrine of the incarnation and the resurrection of Jesus Christ, the appointment of St. Peter as God's vicegerent on earth, and the inheritance of his authority by the popes of Rome, and in short, a summary of the Bible history and of Catholic religion. He then informed him that the Pope had given the whole Western continent to the King of Spain, in consequence of which Alpuza was required to submit to Charles V as his lawful sovereign on pain of the most speedy and terrible vengeance which that monarch could inflict upon him. A demand so extravagant and absurd was rendered still more revolting by the imperfect manner in which it was signified to the Inca by the interpreter. It is not surprising, therefore, that he listened to it with feelings of indignation and scorn. The barbarian chief, however, preserved his temper and replied with coolness, "I should be happy to be friend of the King of Spain, who has significantly displayed his power by sending armies into my countries so distant, but I disdain to be his vassal. I owe no tribute to any moral pontificate and know no man superior in authority to myself. A foreign priest has no right to give away my domains or my dominion. As to change my religion with which you request me to do, it would be both foolish and impetuous in me to abandon the worship transmitted to me by my ancestors until I am convinced that it is false and yours is true. You worship a God who died on a tree. For my part, I adore the sun who never dies. As to the story of creation and the fall of the first man, where did you learn these things which happened so long ago? Here, Valverde interrupted him by replying in an arrogant tone, holding up his breviary. In this book, yeah, that's where he said, in this book, the Inca seized the volume, examined it attentively, turned over the leaves, and put it to his ear. This, said he, with a disdainful smile, tells me nothing, and contemptuously threw it on the ground. Hirenda asserts that he heightened the insult by requesting Pizarro to return the gold and silver of which he had robbed the Peruvians. Okay, and hence you can see, as soon as he threw the book on the ground, the Valverde said, blasphemy. He started yelling and screaming. He is sacrifice the Bible, and that is terrible. And the troops began to attack, and so forth. As you can see in this picture, they attacked all the Indians. 4,000, and of course they went to they captured Pizarro himself, captured the king, drug him off that little chair he had, and put him in one of the houses they had and imprisoned him. And of course his soldiers went out and started killing all the Indians. Out of 8,000 Indians, they killed 4,000 Indians that day, losing no people and having no injuries, except for Pizarro, who hurt his wrist while dragging the king off his chair. So, did we learn anything from that? It said he believed in the sun. Now, the two people that came and started the Incas were children of the sun. Hence, he believed in the sun, and he was a descendant of those people. So I think that says something to that fact, because it is interesting. And the Spanish didn't think nothing of their religion. They believed so heavily in that Bible that nothing else mattered. And as we read in that little section before, if you don't have written text, or you don't have rituals, or you don't have charms, or whatever else, they discount that. We tell myths and legends here all the time, and those are stories that are handed down. They probably weren't written down for hundreds of years. Is that not correct?
Or thousands.
Or thousands, yes. Repeated over and over and over and over and over. Okay, so now we're going to get into some of these other things here. Okay, not to bore you guys. Now I'm going to switch to the new book. Or the new old book. This book was printed in 1840 while Indians were still roaming the plains, believe it or not. Now, while they were still roaming the plains and living the Indian way and the Indian culture, this was a history book written in that time. We're going to get the most unpolitically correct version only seen here on this channel. Is that crazy?
As far as we know.
As far as we know, because this is one of a kind book. I mean, you won't find this, let's see, anywhere. Okay, so it's Solomon execution captive. Okay, I'm gonna find my place here. Oh, here, where we go? Solomon execution captive seem to have been part of the act of faith, the word. Oh, okay. I don't know. I'm gonna just jump in here somewhere where it starts. I got some marks and things in here. I'm going to share screen so we all got something to look at. David, you just chime in if you see something that or hear something you want to comment to. Okay.
Okie dokie.
The Solomon execution of captives seem to have been part of at least an act of faith and a religious sacrifice. The dweller in the wilderness is conscious of his dependence. He feels the existence of relations with the universe by which he is surrounded and an invisible world. He recognizes a nature higher than his own. His language, which gave him no separate word for causation, could give him no expression for the first cause. And since he had no idea of existence except in connection with space and time, he would have no idea of infinite and eternal being. But as the ideas of existence and causation were blended with words expressing action or quality, so the idea of divinity was blended with nature and yet not wholly merged in the external world. So complete was this union, many travelers denied that they had any religion. As to the knowledge of God, says this is this guy who's taking notes, Joliet of the Southwest, it did not seem to us that they had any definite notion about it. True, we found upon our route some who, as far as we could judge, believed that there was something exalted, which is above all, but they have neither temples nor ceremonies, nor prayers marking a divine worship. They have no religion can be said of all whom we saw. And the northern nations, writes Lee Carton, recognize no divinity from the motives of religion. They have neither sacrifice, nor temple, nor priest, nor ceremony of worship. Lejeune also affirms that there is among them very little superstition. They think only of living and of revenge, and they are not attached to worship of any divinity. And yet they believe that some powerful genius has created the world, that unknown agencies had made the heavens above them and the earth on which they dwelt. The God of the savage was what the metaphysical endeavors to express the word substance. The red man, accustomed to generationalization, obtained no conception of an absolute substance of self-existence being, but saw a divinity in every power. Wherever there was a being, motion, or action, there to him was a spirit, and in a special manner. Wherever there appeared a singular existence among the beasts or birds, or in the creation, there to him was a presence of divinity. When he feels his pulse throb or his heart beat, he knows that it is to adore and yeah, is that right? Okay, I think I skipped the page. A spirit, a god resides in the flint to give forth the kindling, cheering fire in the mountain cliff, in the cool recesses of the grottos which nature has adorned, in each little grass that springs miraculously from the earth. The woods and the wilds and the waters respond to savages' intelligence. You notice how they always talk about it's the savage. Everyone they say they're savages. Did you notice that?
Yep.
It's terrible. But yeah.
In reading that, they find great spirit, even though he doesn't say that.
Yes.
Great spirit is in everything.
Yes, exactly. And he says
there's no deity, there's no God, but there is a spiritualness in everything. So
yeah,
it's like, well, ain't that God? But anyway, go ahead.
Well, of course, they go on with this creator. They believe in a creator, but he's we're nowhere to be found. And we've read plenty of creation stories.
Yep.
And God is to them as the creator is in everything, even the flint they use to start the fire.
Right.
Okay, the woods and the wilds, the waters, upon the savage intelligence, the stars and the mountains live. The river and the lakes and the waves have a spirit. Every hidden agency, every mysterious influence is personified. A God dwells in the sun and in the moon and in the filament. The spirit of the morning reddens in the eastern sky. A deity is present in the ocean and in the fire. The crag that overhangs the river has its genius. There is a spirit to the waterfall. A household god makes its abode in the Indian's wigwam and concentrates his home. His spirits climb upon the forwards to weigh down the eyelids in the sleep. Now the heavenly bodies, only the sky is filled with spirits and that's minister to man. To the savage, divinity broken, as it were, into the infinite number of fragments, fill all places and all being. The idea of unity in the creation may have existed contemporaneously, but it existed only in the germ or as a vague belief derived from the harmony of the universe.
A vague belief. Now, these people lived their life that way.
Yeah.
So, but from the author's interpretation, it was a vague belief.
Yes, a vague belief. Now, you remember, these people writing this are in just the beginning, where the Indians were wild yet, and they were going out and seeing these Indians and saying, oh my God, look at what they're doing. They're savages. They don't have a religion. I asked the Indian and he just says, it's everywhere. The Great Spirit's everywhere. And I point to your God. And he goes, it's everywhere. And, to a guy who's always believed in the crucifix and the little Jesus on it and the Bible, that doesn't tell him anything. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
So
there can be only one.
Yes. And this is from the thought, this is the guy who's putting it out there and he is, so you got to figure it. This is a guy from the 1800s, probably born in the 1700s.
Right, probably.
Yeah. Yes. Yet faith in the Great Spirit. Here's the Great Spirit. Yet faith in the Great Spirit, once presented, was promptly seized and appropriated, and so infused itself into the heart of the remotest tribes that it came to be, often considered a portion of their original faith. Their shadowy aspirations and creeds assumed through the reports of missionaries a more complete development, and a religious system was elected from the pregnant but rude materials. It is not fear which generates this faith in the existence of a higher powers. The faith, you notice, it's not fear. That's what Catholic religion is. It's all fear, fear-based. And it says it is not fear which generates this faith in existence of higher powers. The faith attaches to everything, but most of all to that which is excellent. It is an undefined consciousness of the existence of inexplicable relations towards powers of which the savage cannot solve the origin or analyze the nature. His gods are not the offspring of terror. Universal nature seems to him instinct with divinity. The Indian venerates with excites his amazement or interest, his imagination. The Illinois, writes the Jesuit Marset, adore a sort of genius which they call Manitou. I hope I got that right. Manitou. To them, it is the master of life, the spirit that rules all things. A bird, a buffalo, a bear, a feather, a skin. This is their Manitou. As we know, we always read those stories. It's coyote, it's bear, it's fox, it's, it's everything from the beaver, badger, it is. No tribe worshipped its prophets or deified its heroes. No Indian adored his fellow man or paid homage to the dead. He turns from himself to the animal world, which he believes also to be animated by spirits. The bird that mysteriously cleaves the air into which he cannot soar, the fish that hides itself in the depths of the clear, cool lakes which he cannot fathom, the beast of the forest whose unerring instincts, more sure than his own intelligence, seems like revelations. These enshrine the deity whom he adores. And on the Ohio, Merrimack questioned a medicine man who venerated the buffalo as his Manitou. He confessed that he did not worship the buffalo, but the invisible spirit, which in the type of all buffaloes, or is in the type of all buffaloes. It is there such a Manitou. To the bear, yes. To the man, nothing more certain. Man is superior to all. Why do you not then invoke the Manitou of man? And the juggler knew not what to answer. It has been said by speculative philosophy that no Indian ever chose the Manitou of a man for his object of admiration, because he adored only the unknown, and man is the being most intimately known to him. It seems also that the very instinct which promulgated the savage to adore what an instinct which prompted him to recognize his closer connection with the world. See, now that's the thing. See, even with this picture, see, he didn't adore himself. He and everything was God and the Great Spirit, but he didn't bow down to a man. You know what I mean?
Yes, and I wanted the word adore.
Yes.
Okay. In later texts, people will use the word worship.
Yeah.
So his adoration for animals and four-leggeds, but in later texts they will use the word worship.
Yeah.
So that the savage worshiped these animals, where this text, because the old Bible, the old Catholic Bible, uses the word adore, and then in the King James Version, the word adore is changed to worship. So whoever wrote this book was using a correct terminology, in my humble opinion, in that they adored the animals. They didn't worship them.
You got a good point there. We always hear it as worship, because to me, worship means that I bow down in front of it. I give homage to it. But if I adore it, I respect it.
I honor it. Yes.
I should really look that up and see. We should check those two words out, the different meanings.
I have had this conversation on my channel several times, and I bring it up in that I adored my grandmother, but I did not worship her.
Yeah.
There are things that you can adore and with honor and respect, but to worship is a whole nother bow down, kiss their feet, that kind of thing. And so I'm proud that the person who wrote that used the word adore.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we're getting a different look at it through the eyes of somebody who was writing this back in the 1840s, versus today. I would have said, yeah, they were worshiping the sun, and they were worshiping the animals. I mean, it probably wouldn't have come to me as they adore them.
Right. But here's my point. Up to a point, I guess, whoever was writing that must have been Catholic.
Yes, I'm sure they were all Catholic at that point.
Here's my, because in the King James Version, everything is worship. So if it was written by a Protestant, I think they would have chosen a different word. I'm just one to kind of out.
Well, no, I get it, you know, but back in those days, it was still Christianity is Christianity. I mean, regardless if they're Protestant or they're Catholic or whatever, it's still on the same lines. And at that time, when this was written, you know, there was some things that were still not, you know, and there was a point in time when things got changed a lot.
Yep.
I know because I went ahead and I was on that mission to figure things out. So I bought me an old Bible from, you know, the early 1800s. Cost me a lot of money, but I bought an old one, a really old one, you know, with the cool names signed in the back, you know, pass me down. It's about that thick. And what it is that, you know, how the new Bibles, they got the you know, what Jesus said written in red and all that. There's none of that. There's nothing to distinguish what he said and there's a lot of things that are kind of different in there too. You know, it's not all, you know, I compared to things and it's just certain little words that they changed that make it different. It may like this adore. Yes, I adore you, but I don't worship you.
Right.
You know, that's a, you know, huge difference.
I've been telling people for years that back at 1982, 83, 84, whoever prints a Bible does not have to print every word of the previous Bible. They can print whatever they want to print and use whatever words they want to and put this is a King James version or this is a whatever Bible. But to the point though, so whoever printed the Bible is the one, you know, you should check not the version, but who printed the dadgum thing. Well, because they change words along the way and nobody pays attention.
Well, here's the thing. They have to change some of the words because I found this out is because of copyright laws. So say I'm printing a Bible, right? I have to change up to like 10% of that Bible so that I can copyright it and you can't come and print the same darn thing. Whereas when these older books were written or them older Bibles, there was no copyright on there. I don't even think there's a copyright on this book. They didn't have copyrights. This is just,
they did.
You know, I don't know if, well, maybe they did, but I mean,
but it doesn't mean it was copywritten.
Yes, exactly. I don't think it was such a big thing because it wasn't like everybody could go out and just print. Excuse me. Thank you. You know, because like here it just says it's this book. It says, you know, entered with Congress. See, he says Discovery of America by George Bancroft, 6th edition.
Wait, it said entered with Congress.
Yeah, Discovery of the American Continent by George Bancroft. Hang on a second. Where did I set this? Oh, here. These pages were stuck together. Or are they stuck together? Or is this a whole thing? Charles A. Brown, 6th edition. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, entered according to the Act of Congress in the year 1840 by George Bancroft.
So it's copywritten.
In the clerk's office of the District Court of Massachusetts.
Yeah, so they got a copy of it.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, anyway, there you go.
That's before they came up with the word copyright. Okay. But entered with the Congress and, you know, yep.
Now I get it. I'm learning something tonight. There we go. Isby's in the house. Haven't seen Isby for a while. Hope you're doing all right. Regine Hutchinson's in the house. Much favor and love to you too, girl. Susie Q, as always, as lovely as ever. Witchy Moon's in the house. Desert Rose, thank you for joining me tonight. Let's see. Oh, well, let's get back to this so I can finish up here before I make it too long. Where am I? Oh, I got to get my share. Anyway, there we go. That's what I'm sharing. We're on this one. But anyway, oops, too big. Anyway, here we go. Instincts towards man, humanity, and to intimate communication with nature and beings of whom imagination entrusted its control with the sun, the moon, and the rivers, the lakes, and the fishes, and the birds, all which had extensive independence of man and manifests a power which he can neither create nor destroy. Nor did the savage distrust his imagination. Something within him affirmed with authority that there was more in them than the fancies which his hand had called into being. Indefinitely, never clouded his mind, and shadows of skepticism never darkened his faith. The pity of the savage was not merely a sentiment of a passive resignation he sought to propagate unknown, to avert the wrath, to secure the favor. If at first no traces of religion feeling were discerned, closer observation showed that everywhere among the red men, even among the roving tribes of the north, they had some kind of sacrifice and of prayer. If the harvest was abundant, if the chase was successful, they saw in their success the influence of Manitou, and they would ascribe even an ordinary accident to the wrath of God. "Oh, Manitou," exclaimed an Indian at daybreak with his family about him, lamenting on the loss of a child, "thou art angry with me. Turn thy anger from me and spare the rest of my children." Canisius, the great shaman of the Nagasats, when bent with age, having buried his son, burned his own dwelling and all his goods in it, in part as a humble expiation to the God who, as they believed, had taken his son, I love how they spelled son, S-O-N-N-E, from him. At their feast, they were careful not to profane the bones of the elk, the beaver, and the other game, lest the spirits of the animals should pass by and behold the indignity. And then the living of the same species, instructed out of outrage, would ever after be careful to escape the toils and the arrows of the hunter. There were also occasions on which nothing of the flesh was carried forth out of the wigwams, though part might be burnt as food for the dead. And when of the beasts which were consumed, it was the sacred rule that not a bone should be broken. On their expeditions, they keep no watch during the night. They pray earnestly to their fetchies, and I don't know what a fetchies is. And the band of warriors sleep securely under the safeguard of the sentinels whom they have invoked. They throw tobacco into the fire on the lake or the rapids, into the crevices of the rocks on the warpath, to promulgate the genius of the places. The evil that is in the world, they also ascribe to spirits. They are the dreaded authors of their woes. The evil demon of war was to be appointed or propagated only by the acts of cruelty, yet they never sacrificed their own children or their own friends. The Iroquois, when Jaundice was among them, sacrificed an Algonquin woman in honor of Kaskui, their war god, exclaiming, "Askui, to thee we burn this victim. Feast on her flesh and grant us new victories." And her flesh was eaten as if religious rite. Harapin found a beaver robe hung on an oak, and an obligation to a spirit that dwells in the falls of St. Anthony. The guides of Joel in the southwest, on killing a buffalo, offered several slices of the meat as a sacrifice to an unknown spirit of the wilderness. So the thing is they were let's sacrifice this gal and to our war god, and then we'll eat her. Oh my God. Well, we're not going to do it to our family and friends. Oh my goodness. And who says they don't have any religious rights? As they passed the Ohio, and a beautiful stream was propagated by gifts of tobacco and dried meat, and worship was paid to the rock just above the Missouri. Even now, in the remote West, evidence may be found of the same homage to the higher natures which the savages divine but cannot fathom. Nor did they seek to win their favor by gifts alone. He made a sacrifice of his pleasures. He chastised his passions to calm the rising wind. When the morning sky was red, he would reprise his activity and give up the busyness of the day to secure success in the chase. By appeasing the tutelary spirits of the animals to be pursued, severe fasts were kept, and happy to be to whom they appeased or appeared in his dreams, for it was a sure augury of abundant returns. The warrior preparing for an expedition often sought the favor of the god of battle by separating himself from woman and mortifying the body by continued penance. The security of a female captives was in part the consequence of the vows of chastity by which the warrior was bound till after his return. The Indian, detesting restraint, was perpetually imposing upon himself extreme hardships. By penance and suffering he might atone for his offenses, and by acts of self-denial might win himself the power, favor of the invisible world. Nor is the Indian satisfied with paying homage to nor is it satisfied paying homage to the several powers whose aid he may invoke in war and the chase on the river. He seeks special genius to be his companion and tutelary angel through life. Approaching maturity, a young Chippewa, anxious to behold God, blackens his face with charcoal, and building a lodge in cedar boughs, it may be on a summit of a hill where he begins his fast in solitude. We read about this kind of stuff a lot. The fast endures perhaps 10 days, sometimes even without water, till excited by the severest irritation of thirst, watchfulness, and famine, he beholds a vision of God and knows it to be his guardian spirit. That spirit may assume fantastic forms as a skin or a feather, as a smooth pebble or shell, but the fetish which obtained and carried by the warrior in his pouch is not the guardian angel himself, but rather the token of his favor and the pledge of his penance in time of need. A special propagation was appointed for the warriors of Virginia, and traces of it are discerned beyond the Mississippi. So, these guys went into their little thing. Then, we talked about the little, what do you call that? I can't remember the terms for all that.
Well, different tribes would have different things, but a sweat lodge was one place where they would go, and
sweat lodge. That's what I'm thinking of.
But they also, if someone was doing a vision quest, it's a young brave, so he builds his own little hut.
Yeah.
And that's his vision quest hut. Now you could, call it a medicine lodge or something like that. But one of the things that we read about was that in some of the instances, they would actually dig a hole and crawl in the hole for a day or two, or sometimes a week, and they would cover it over. And it was that they had to understand what death was, and to be able to rise out of the ground and out of the grave and become a different person.
Interesting.
And through that, they could have they would have visions. But interestingly enough, that this writer, the author, continued to use the word penance, for example, which is sort of a Christian word. All right. I'm going to do penance to the Lord. I'm going to cover myself in sackcloth and go bow down on the steps of the cathedral, because back in the medieval days they had to ask penance and dress themselves in rags and ask for penance from I guess whoever went by, but they'd go to the steps of the church. And anyway, so, but this, the using the word penance is sort of a Christian word in that respect. But if from the same point, they had no religion, but they would give offerings of burnt, meat for food, or to the, they gave respect and honor. So, but they, it's almost like they were Buddhist in that they karma. So, something must have been wrong. My son died, and so I'm going to burn all my possessions.
Yeah, start over.
Yep. In case there was any evil there, but also to show that, look, I'm serious about this. I burned everything I own. I'm going to start over, because whatever I did or happened, even though they may not have done anything, but from their own personal, quote, religious point of view, that's what they needed to do.
Exactly. Now, you notice by this picture I got up, it's kind of interesting. We could talk about it after this. It says here, a similar propagation was appointed by the warriors of Virginia, and the traces are discerned beyond the Mississippi. The man should take up the cross, that sin should be atoned for, are ideas that dwell in human nature. They were so diffused among the savages that Le Croix believes some of the apostles must have reached the American continent. The gifts to the deities were made by the chiefs or by the Indians for himself. In this sense, each Indian was his own priest. The right of offering sacrifices was not reserved to class. Anyone could do it for himself, whether the sacrifice consisted of obligations or acts or self-denial. But the Indian had a consciousness of man's superiority to the power of nature, and sorcerers sprung up in every part of the wilderness. They were prophets whose prayers would be heard, and no other, said the Virginia Windtaker, but such as are English witches. And as their agency was most active in the healing disease, they are now usually called medicine men. They too, the liberty of the dearest desert appears, as the war chief was elected by opinion and served voluntarily so the medicine men were self-appointed. They professed an insight into the laws of nature and the power over those laws, but belief was free, and there was no monopoly of science, no close priesthood. He who could inspire confidence might come forward as a medicine man. Well, and as you see in this picture, I found this picture and I thought, well, how genius is that when they're talking about, well, the apostles must have landed here and bestowed something on them, 1,000 years before, and I see this picture here, and you can see the Incan temple in the background. I thought that was very interesting. Now, if such a thing ever happened, the savages or the Indians, they would have been mystified. Or maybe this did happen, and that's where we got, some of those, because they did say, what's that one that came to the Incas or the Mayans, and he had a beard. They drew him as a beard, Yeah, and I think even the Hopi and some of the others have had, visitors. Yes, I do believe that. Definitely do believe that. I mean, they believe it. I mean, whether we do or not, they believe it. They did, yes. Well, anyway, see, it says here, I'm gonna skip over a few bits here. Okay. Little reverence was attached to time or place. It could not be perceived that the savages had set in any holidays, or why would they have holidays? Only in the times of triumph or brutal burials at harvest, the nation assembled for a solemn rites. Each Chakota town had a house in which the bones of the dead were deposited for a season previous for their final burial. The Natchez, like their kindred, the Tanesians, kept a perpetual fire in the rude cabin in which the bones of the great chiefs were said to be preserved. The honest Charlevoix who entered it writes, I saw no ornaments, absolutely nothing, which could make me know that I was in a temple, and referring to the minute relations which others had fabricated of an altar and a dome of cones wrapped in skins and the circle of the bodies of the departed chiefs he had. I saw nothing of that. If things were so formerly, they must have changed greatly. And Adir confidently insuits that the Quran does not more widely differ from the Gospels than the romances respecting the Natchez from the truth. The building was probably a channel house, not a place of worship. No tribes whatsoever east of the Mississippi, or certainly none except those of the Natchez family, had consecrated spots or a temple where there was believed to be a near communication between this world and that which is unseen. So here's the thing. He's looking for a temple. He's so used to the church, the religion where they have all the fancy garb that, it was, he's looking for something that resembles what he believes. And I think that's bad. So now we got this picture up here, and this is of a chief. When the chief would die, I read that he would say, I'm going to die. They would throw him a festival. He would put on his best clothes. And they would, once he died, they would bring him over to his teepee and set him upright like he's sitting. And they would honor him that way. And that's where I got this picture from. That would be honoring the chief. And sometimes they buried him, or they would leave him that way for, like he was still alive. Thought that was a lot of Indians would burn their dead. They would have these, as we know, the Indians danced a lot for their rituals. Fire is important to them. As we can see by this guy talking, he says, they said all our bones are in there of our famous chiefs, and this is our sacred temple. And he goes in there and finds nothing but bones and some animal skins. And he says, this isn't no temple. Where's the fancy jewels and spurs and the gold and the silver and the candles? And he's looking for something else. And you got to remember, these are primitive people there.
Well, but they just had no gold and silver and all that had no value.
Yes, they didn't have value for gold and silver. Yeah,
you read earlier that they didn't adorn one another, and that everyone, so their philosophy was just from the day they were born is different, than anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So as we know, Native Americans have plenty of creation stories. I thought that was a good one. A lot of dancing. As you know, they would dress up, dance, and have their rituals that way. Different tribes, different looks, This one here's one we can recognize. That would be that the ghost dance, or not the ghost dance, the sun dance or whatever it was, where they tie the strings to the pole in the middle of the thing until the guy can't stand it no more and passes out. And then hopefully he has a vision. This would be a medicine man. Here's another thing I thought was interesting. In order to convince the Indians about Christianity, they would take their totem poles and convert them into, put the Jesus thing up there on the cross. Early attempts to make a version of Christianity that Native Americans would understand by the Pilgrims got a little strange. Believe it or not. This is how most of it was told. The elder would sit around with the rest and tell myths and legends, spreading the word. No written word, just from the mouth, from one to the next, to the next, to the next. Okay, one last little bit here, and this is kind of interesting because we've talked a lot about dreams. Dreams are to the wild man the avenue to the invisible world. He refers them
Wild
to
man. I'm sorry. I just
yeah, that's what it said.
it went from savage to wild man. I'm sorry. That just
Yeah, exactly.
go
Like
ahead.
I said,
I'm
he
sorry.
referred you're a
It shocked,
savage, you're a
it shocked
wild
me.
man, anything that it's always makes you think how oh my God, uncouth and barbarians, use barbarian, wild man, savage, you know, invisible world. He refers them to the divine revelations and believes he shall die unless they are carried into effect. The visions in a feverish sleep are obeyed by the village or the tribe, the whole nation. As we know, we heard of Sitting Bull had visions, Crazy Horse had visions, and everybody believed him when he came out and said, I had a vision, we're going to win the war. They would contribute it to the harvest, costly furs, its belts of beads, and produce the produce of its chase rather than fail in their fulfillment. The dream must be obeyed, even if it required the surrender of women to the public embrace. The faith in the spiritual world, as relieved by dreams, was universal. On Lake Superior, the nephew of a Chippewa squaw, having dreamed that he saw a French dog, the woman traveled 400 leagues in midwinter over ice and through snows to obtain the dog. Life itself was hazardous rather than fail to listen to the message conveyed through sleep, and it could not be fulfilled, at least some semblance would be made. Happy was the hunter who, as he went forth to the chase, obtained a vision of the great spirit of the animal which he was to pursue, the sight of the warrant of success. But if the dream should be threatening, the savage, back to the savage again, would rise in the night or prevent the dawn with prayer, or he would call around him his friends and neighbors and himself, keeping waking and fasting with invocations for many days and nights. The Indian invoked friendship of the spirits and sought the meditation of medicine men, but he never would confess his fear of death. To him also intelligence was something more than transitory accident, and he was unable to conceive the cessation of life. His faith in immortality was like that of a child who weeps over the dead body of his mother and believes that she yet lives at the bottom of a grave, and melting snow had left a little water, and the sight of a chilled and saddened his imaginations. Anyway, so there you go. Let's see if I can see any more here that we should read. Oh yeah, here we go. He never names the departed. We talked about that last week with Chief Seattle. Don't name the departed. Due to this is offensive and justifies revenge. To speak generally of the brothers to whom he has lost your own would be an injury, for it would make her weep because her brothers are no more, and the missionary could not speak of the father of a man or the orphans without kindling indignation. And yet they summon energy to speak of their own approaching death with tranquility. Full happy I am, sings the warrior, full happy I am to be slain with the limits of the land of the enemy, or within the limits of the land of the enemy. While yet alive, the dying chief sometimes arrayed himself in the garments of which he was to be buried, and giving a farewell festival, calmly chanted his last song and made a last hurrah, glorying the remembrance of his deeds and commending to his friends the care of those whom he loved. And when he had given up the ghost, he was placed in his wigwam in a sitting posture. Oh yeah, that's where this comes in. That's the one I wanted to show you for this part. in the sitting posture, as if to show that though life was spent, the principle of being was not gone, and in this posture he was buried. Everywhere in America, this posture was adopted as burials from Canada to Patagonia. It was the usage of every nation and evidence that some common sympathy pervaded the continent and struck by a chord which vibrated throughout the heart of the race. The narrow house in which the warriors sat was often hedged around with a light parasite, and for 6 months the women would repair it to it thrice a day to weep. He that should despoil the dead was accursed. So anyway, there you go. Let's go through some of these slides. If you see anything, let me know. We did that one, Medicine Man, Christianity. Yeah. Notice they're always around fire, using simple things like smoke, smudging, colors, paint your face, things like that.
Oh, also, if you go back to that last one,
okay.
See, he's got a pipe in his hand in the foreground.
Oh yeah, peace pipe right there.
So they were painting their face for something, and notice that all the men are bent over and touching the ground.
Oh yeah.
So whatever that ceremony is, it was a very sacred ceremony.
Yeah.
It wasn't that they were just sitting around. That was a big time bit. Whatever that they were doing, that was a big deal right there. I'm just
cool. Yeah. Amazing what you can get from pictures.
Now, see, whatever was going on there, it was more relaxed.
Yeah.
Is my point. So the other one was like big time serious. And then there's a lot of detail in these paintings that you've got, like the one with the chiefs in the center while you're reading about sitting them in their wigwam. The detail in that picture is just phenomenal. And this one as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the smoke in the foreground going up.
Yeah.
And the reason there was always a fire, because they had to keep a fire going back in them days. It was easier to keep a fire, and the smoke kept away bugs and stuff, and they didn't have to start a fire. They just had to add to it.
Yep. Let's see here. Well, there we go. Here again. More dancing.
Now, see, something's coming out of his hand.
Yeah, it looks like he's throwing something into the air.
I would probably say that it was dirt.
Dirt, yeah. Could be. Yeah, look at this one down here. He's reaching down to grab some dirt.
Yep.
Probably. Yeah. Cool.
And that's in reference to Mother Earth. So if you're asking Mother Earth to help you, what would you do? You'd reach down and grab a piece.
That's
part of your prayer. But also, if you look at the Indians, the ones that are wearing feathers, they're all standing up versus lying down. So that is probably a war dance, because when they wore the feathers up, it was a sign of a warning. I don't trust you, or something's up. If feathers are worn and they're lazy and they lay down, then that means that it's more casual. Okay.
Yeah.
If they're wearing those feathers up, it's not just a casual thing. Just to point that out.
Okay. Yeah. Here's one of the totems. We haven't shown that before. I guess this could be a religious thing in a way, I mean, this
is,
I mean, well, yeah, but I mean, not something they would not like Jesus on the stick kind of thing.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And each tribe and every clan would have their own totem pole. So it was like whoever's on the bottom are like the base, but then with the wings, if that's that would be the deity, that would be God, the great phoenix. Oh, I can't think of the word right now. Oh man. Anyway, the great bird.
Yeah, like the raven or crow or eagle.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Cool.
And they, sitting watch over the tribe. And so the one under it could have been a great chief, and the one under that one was somebody, so religious in that it represented the tribe or the clan.
Yeah.
And, and if you deface somebody's totem pole, they'd go to war over that mess. So, but
yeah. Well, here's more dancing. Like I said, I think, well, they didn't have things, so I think dancing meant a lot. Because every time we read stuff, it was, they did the medicine dance, the rain dance, the, beating of the drums, things like that, things they had available to them. Native religion, here we go. Though Native American spiritualist ceremonies and rituals were often referred to as religion, most did not consider it in the way Christians do, of course. And as we read, however, it was labeled as such by American writers, soldiers, and settlers who called it such, perhaps because they did not know to otherwise describe the rituals and ceremonies. The Native Americans themselves believed that their rituals and practices formed an integral part and seamless part of their very being. Like the Aboriginal peoples around the world, their beliefs were heavily influenced by the methods of acquiring food, from hunting to agriculture. They also embraced ceremonies and rituals that provided power to conquer the difficulties of life, as well as events and milestones such as puberty, marriage, and or death. Over the years, practices and ceremonies changed with the tribe's needs. And as you can see from this picture, this is you got bones, you got blankets, you got, I don't know what this thing is. Whatever it is, it's interesting. I should see it better, but
so it looks like a bone or something on top of it, or maybe a bow.
It could be.
You see the shape of that on top of it?
Yeah.
It could just be a stand, but I don't,
looks like it's got 4 legs. Maybe it's like a table and we just can't see the rest of it.
Yeah.
And this looks like some kind of tools. Looks like a shovel kind of thing. And this looks like fruit or vegetables or something up there.
Gourds,
yeah.
And they also, did pottery too.
Yeah, it's true. And I think that is it for my slides tonight. But I'm glad you all came along for the interest. Of course, it goes on a little more about the Indians' beliefs in individual animals. They possess mystery, as we know, as we're going to get into a story, I'm sure. It says the Indian believes also in individual animals, that it possesses the mysterious and indestructible principle of life. There's not a breathing thing but has its shade, which never can perish, regarding himself in comparison with other animals, but the first among according existence. He respects the brute creation and assigns it to as himself as perpetuity of being. The ancients of the lands believed that the warrior had released from life renews his passions and activities by his world, is seated once more among his friends, and shares again the feast, walks in the shadowy forests that are alive with the spirits of the birds, and there he is in paradise. Wow. So there you go. That sets us up for all those myths and legends, which, as many books as I got, this was the only one that actually talked about the religion. All the other ones just talked about what they believe in, not why they believe in it. And I thought that was really interesting on that fact.
Yep.
Because nobody ever talks about that. It's not why do they believe, it's what are they believing? It's like, this is what they believe, and this is why they do that stuff.
Stating rather than
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No matter how
observing it.
Yes, exactly. Let's see. We got S. Leah's in the house. I hope you guys are all enjoying that. I thought it was really kind of cool. I love going to the description and there's thanks, Courtney. Let's see. Izzy chose eating meal provide. Okay, Isby. Yeah, Isby wants to know. Oh, Carrie Bergman's in the house. And let's see. Isby says, Hawkeye, you gonna do a show tonight?
I think so.
All right. What do you got for us tonight?
All right. I want you to find page 389. And I think because of what you read tonight, I think this is fitting.
Oh.
And it's an introductory page to one of the chapters in the book. 4 legs, 2 legs, and no legs. Stories of animals and other people. And so
did you say 389?
389 is the page after.
Stories of animals and other peoples?
Yep, it's the next page.
Yeah, okay, I got it. Okay.
But I think this is appropriate, and I don't know if I've ever read this. I know I've read some of the stories, but there's just one page, and it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, okay, I got it. I found it. And there we go.
All right, so you could use this as a story, but stories of animals and other people. Animals are swarming, talkative presence in the folklore of every Indian tribe. The number of tales in which they figure should not be surprising, given their major role in Indian mythology and religion. Their medicines are powerful, as are the emblems and tokens associated with them. We have seen a number of animals depicted as the creators of the universe and of the human race, and they freely move in and out of stories, now as tricksters, now as culture bringers. In the Indian imagination, there is no division between the animal and human spheres. Each takes the other's clothing, shifting appearances at will. Animals of different species speak freely, not only to one another, but to humans as well. Some of today's medicine men still claim to understand the language of certain animals. When a television interviewer laughed at Lame Deer's suggestion that he could understand birds, he replied, "In your good book, a lady talks to a snake. I, at least, speak to eagles." In the effort to merge the human and animal realms, marriages between the two are the natural resort. All cultures across the continent depict bear spouses, in addition to the buffalo in the southwestern plains and the whale in the northwest. The dog husband is also popular. In one story, he is a canine by day and human by night. When his wife has dog children, her tribe deserts her, but they return when it appears that these dog boys are prospering far better than the starving humans. Such marriages are regarded with varying degrees of sympathy by the new human and animal in-laws, and don't necessarily fare better or worse than normal ones. Even though animals were essentially sacred, they still provided an important food source. Folklore supplies vivid, emblematic links between nourishment and the relations of humans and animals. In British Columbia, there is a story of a young man who marries a deer, magically becomes one himself, and provides venison to feed his people. Hunting was a solemn ritual-laden undertaking. Before starting out, men of many tribes observed careful rules requiring fast and sexual abstinence. And they performed elaborate ceremonies to secure a successful hunt. Among the Pueblos, further rituals were performed after a deer was slain to thank the deer for letting itself be caught and to ensure further luck in the hunt. Thus, animals and humans find themselves bound together in a living web of mutual aid and respect. And after you discussing religion, I thought that this really would fit.
It did. It talked about all those things, the folklore. It talked about the hunting, how they would, they existed, and the animals took on the spirit. They did all of those things. They talked all about that, like, the fast, requiring fast and sexual abstinence. That's what I talked about. So the guys and sexual abstinence, that's what I talked about. So the guy who was writing this really, he did do some research on it. He just didn't walk into that Indian village and just go, these are savages and wild men. Look at this. This is crappy. I mean, he must have did a little bit more than nothing. You know what I'm saying?
He observed them as they were without bringing religion into it.
Yes, that I should say that. He observed them before. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. You're right. Go ahead.
But also because of when he was writing this, he had no preconceptions of reading someone else's stuff.
That is true.
So later on, folks who met those savages and who wrote after that had already been preconditioned.
Yes.
So anything after 1840s, I mean, they had moved the savages and the Trail of Tears had happened, but that was like right after.
Yeah.
So his observations were before that until he wrote the book, you know what I'm saying? So just to point that out.
Well, and no, I agree, because he's out there before, the Indians were all converted to Christianity. And I could see why they were easily converted, because, they were thinking of the Great Spirit. And you're saying that God is the Great Spirit and that he's in every living thing. He's the creator of all. But as you noticed, according to this guy in the beginning there, he says they don't have any fear of their God. Their religion has no fear in it. So he's already saying that Christianity is a religion that is based off of fear. And what did we read last week with Chief Seattle? He feared no man and until he learned of religion, and then he feared God.
Yeah.
So that's a perfect thing how they used religion to control these people. Because once they had the fear of God, oh my gosh, you better not go kill somebody. That's against God's rules. You better not do this, and you better conform to what we want. You can't be out there, and with the Indian religion, they were into fasting already. They were into the penance. They were already doing these things on their own. So it wasn't a hard leap over to that other religion.
Right. And they had a name for the Great Spirit, God.
Yes.
And they had a book. And I can't remember, there was one of the great chiefs, or at least a shaman type medicine man, and I can't remember who it was, but he said, beware of the white man's, how did they put it? Teachings on wood, which meant paper. And, that it would ensnare the native peoples. And it did. They brought a book called the Bible and plopped it down and said, here we go, you know, and they were like, well, what, you know, since they had nothing to produce that, you know, trumped it.
Yeah.
They were like,
and that's what they said. There was no religious artifacts. There was no, you know, temples. There was, you know, except the hut, you know, here's a hut. And then tomorrow it's there. And then the next day it's gone. They have a little fire that burns continuously in there. And these people that came there were looking for that religious items. They were looking for, you know, grand splendor. I mean, if you were in Europe and you looked at one of those churches back in the day, you know, those big cathedral churches, I've been to some of them, and you're in awe when you walk in, and the thing is humongous, and it's for those days, it's huge, you know. I mean, it's unbelievable.
To this day, they're still huge.
Yes.
And but to the point, you know, there was a great architect way back in the day, and I can't remember, and it was like, why do you build them so high and so tall? It's because we want you to feel like you're outside while you're inside, which seems a little,
it's intimidating,
redundant.
Well, it's intimidating,
right? Intimidating, but at the same time, but the native folks, they just look at the sky as the quote, the temple, if you will, or the church. You know, the sky is the roof.
Yes, and
you know,
and the Great Spirit is everywhere, and it's in everything and anything and everything, and yeah, you know, they did have some superstition kind of things. Hey, you better not scrape the bones or break the bones of the animals, or you'll never, you know, get another one. They'll come back and haunt you. Their ancestors, you know, so forth and so on. So he's kind of wrong about that. I think they did the best with what they had, with what they, you know, and the thing is like you said, the big cathedrals, you go in one of those, and if everybody's quiet and you are the priest and you're up in the front and you're talking, that whole place vibrates, and it makes you sound like, you know, like you got a microphone. You know, I mean, you're huge, and it vibrates off the walls, and it echoes in there, and you know, it almost sounds like the, you know, voice of God coming at you, kind of thing. You know what I'm thinking? Where I'm going with that? Yeah. I'm
having grown up in a Catholic church and was in choir, and I got to admit, to sing in a cathedral, you know, well, with the choir. You know, and the sound that it can make, and as a choral group, you know, to sing the Alleluia chorus in a cathedral as a member of the chorus is like, you know, your chills run up and down your spine, and I mean, it's just amazing. But at the same time, you know, being outside and having danced with many different powwows and such, I got to say that it was just as thrilling, if not more, to be outside with the drum. And they each have their place. Okay, I'll just leave it at that.
Yes. You got another one for us, or you're pulling a card? You got another story, or are you going to pull a card?
Yeah, I got a story if you'd like one.
Yeah, okay, I'm ready for it.
Let me let my dog out, because there's going to be nothing but noise in the background. So
okay, all right,
come here,
go right ahead. I appreciate you all for coming tonight. Let's see. S. Lee, beast, 4 legs, man, 2 legs, fish, no legs. Yes, that's for sure. And thank you, Desert Rose. The white man goes into his church and talks to Jesus, or talks about Jesus. The Indian goes into his teepee and talks to Jesus. That is a good one.
That's true.
It's Carrie says there, it's there too. It just looks a little different to all of us depending on where and something. Anyway, then we'll seek a deeper. In the end, we will all seek a deeper meaning to everyday life. Yes, of course we will. You notice that's what happens when you get older. You start to look for the meaning of life. When you're young, it's carefree and you live every day like it's, there's no end. And as you get older, you start thinking about that.
Let's see.
All right.
Okay, we've been an hour and a half. So this is a short story. I may have read it way back when we were in this section before.
What page?
I'm sorry, 375. So you got to back up a little bit. But how to scare a bear. And I'm not sure if I've read this before, but how to scare a bear. And I just thought, just a little bit of tee-hee,
Yeah.
And then I'll pull a card. Unless we got time for another one.
I am not on call tonight. Another guy decided he would take it for me because I was doing my show, which I appreciate. Big shout out to him. Okay, I got a little more here to go. I'm looking up the pages as I'm going. I'm driving the bus, people. So thank goodness I have time tonight to give the best show I can possibly give tonight. Thank goodness. I'm on call.
Then I have two short stories. How to Scare a Bear, which just, is just a fun story, just because.
Yeah. How to Scare a Bear. There we go. I got it. Yeah. That story you told the other week was so good. I had to put it out as a short the other day. Did you notice that?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. There you go.
Let me get a sip. How to Scare a Bear. Tiwa. Long ago and far away, this did not happen. On top of Red Rock Hill lived a little rabbit. Prickly pears were his favorite fruit, and every day he would hunt for them along the east bank of the Rio Grande. Eventually, he ate all the prickly pears on that bank, so he cast his hungry eyes across the river. He said to himself, "I'll bet plenty of them grow over there. Now, how am I going to get across the river to look?" The rabbit knew the river was too deep and too wide for him to swim on his own, and he sighed, "Oh, how I wish that Uncle Fastwater, who moves the current, were here to take me across." Fastwater heard and replied, "Child, I'm lying right here. What can I do for you?" Little Rabbit leaped toward the sound. "Uncle, so this is where you live?" "Yes, this is the place," said his uncle. "What kind of work do you want from me?" I want to cross the river to pick prickly pears, but the water is too deep and too wide for me. Will you help me get across?" Fastwater agreed, so the little rabbit sat on top of his head. Splash, splash, splash went the water, and quickly the two were on the other side. "Be sure and call me when you want to come back," Fastwater said when they landed. The rabbit wanted to get home before nightfall, so he wasted no time but went right to picking and eating prickly pears. Then Brother Bear appeared. "Little Rabbit." "Yes, Brother Bear." "My, what a pretty necklace you have." "Yes, isn't it?" "Well, I want to make a bet with you for that necklace," said Brother Bear. "I'm willing to bet my red necklace for yours. If I win, you'll give me yours. And if you win, I'll give you mine." Little Rabbit agreed, and they arranged to meet at noon the next day in the same spot. That afternoon, the little rabbit returned to the river, and his uncle easily carried him back across the water. "Tomorrow you must wait for me, Uncle. I have placed a bet with Brother Bear, and I need you to carry me across the river again." "I'll wait for you," replied his uncle. "I know you'll win." The next day, the little rabbit got up early and hurried to meet Brother Bear. Because of his early start, he arrived first and decided to stroll in the woods. As he was hopping around, he spotted an old horse bell that still had a dried up piece of leather tied to it. He hung it around his neck, and with each jump, the bell went clank, clank. The little rabbit said to himself, I think this bell will come in very handy with Brother Bear. And he hid the bell carefully in the woods. When noon came, Brother Bear appeared, and you're here early, he said. Oh, yes, answered the little rabbit, but he said nothing more. The two picked a place in the dense wooded area to have their contest, and then Brother Bear made a circle on the ground with a stick. Little rabbit, you can go first, said Brother Bear. Oh, no, said the little rabbit, you wanted to bet and you should go first. Yes, I'll go first. I'll bet you I'm the braver of us two. See that circle? You sit in it, and if you move even a little from where you're sitting, I win. Little rabbit sat down, and Brother Bear took off into the woods. A few minutes later, the rabbit heard strange sounds. Ah, 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 tweet, 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 tweet. Ah, 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 tweet, tweet, tweet. I know that's Brother Bear, thought the little rabbit. He's trying to scare me, but I won't move. Closer and closer came the strange sounds. Suddenly, with a crash, a great big tree came tumbling down and barely missed the little rabbit. You moved, I saw you, shouted Brother Bear. No, I didn't move. Come and see for yourself, answered the rabbit. Brother Bear couldn't find any footmarks and had to agree that the little rabbit had not moved at all. Little rabbit said to Brother Bear, now you must sit in this circle as I did in yours. The rabbit drew a circle and Brother Bear sat in it. Leaving Brother Bear sitting in the circle, the rabbit headed into the woods. He just put the old horse bell around his neck and headed toward the place where Brother Bear was waiting. After he had hopped a few steps, the little rabbit stopped, rang the horse bell, and sang, ah, nani na, Ichnay, Chanani, Kuhaya, where are you sitting, my bear friend? When Brother Bear heard this, he thought, that's not my friend, Little Rabbit. This is something else altogether. Coming closer to the circle where Brother Bear was sitting, the little rabbit rang his horse bell louder and sang his song once more. Brother Bear, growing really frightened, stood up and ran. The little rabbit jumped out and called, you've lost. Let me have your necklace. As the story goes, the little rabbit defeated Brother Bear. And today, if you see a rabbit around the Tiwa country, and if he has a red ring around his neck, you can be sure that the rabbit is descended from the little rabbit who won Brother Bear's pretty red necklace. Translated from the Tiwa by Alfonso Ortiz.
Wow, that was a good one. That was good. Elderberries in the house.
Have we got time for one more?
Oh, you bet.
That's 2 pages. All right, go to 379.
379. Okay.
We may have read this way back when we first started.
Well, I'll tell you if I see it. What's it called? 379.
Doing a
379, you said?
Yeah. Doing a trick with eyeballs.
Doing a trick with I don't remember this one. Okay, hang on. I got to get it up. There we go. Doing a trick with eyeball. Okay.
Get another sip. Doing a trick with eyeballs. Northern Cheyenne. Viho is like some tourist who come into an Indian village not knowing how to behave or what to do, trying to impress everybody. One day, Viho met a medicine man with great powers. This man thought to amuse Viho and himself with a little trick. Eyeballs. Eyeballs, he shouted, I command you to fly out of my head and hang on that tree over there. At once his eyeballs shot out of his head in a flash, were hanging from a tree branch. Viho watched open-mouthed. Ho, eyeballs, cried the medicine man. Now come back where you belong. And quick as lightning, the eyeballs were back where they ought to be. Uncle, said Viho, please give me a little of your power so that I too can do this wonderful trick. To himself, Viho was thinking, then I can set up as a medicine man. Then people will look up to me, especially good-looking girls. And then people will give me many gifts. Why not, said the medicine man. Why not give you a little power to please you? But listen, Viho, don't do this trick more than 4 times a day or your eyeballs won't come back. I won't, said Viho. Viho could hardly wait to get away and try out this stunning trick. As soon as he was alone, he ordered, eyeballs, hop on that ledge over there, jump to it, and the eyeballs did. Viho couldn't see a thing. Quickly, eyeballs, back into your sockets. The eyeballs obeyed. Boy, oh boy, Viho said to himself, what a big man I am, powerful, really powerful. Soon he saw another tree. Eyeballs, run up into that tree, quick. For a second time, the eyeballs did as they were told. Back into the skull, Viho shouted, snapping his fingers. And at once the eyeballs jumped back. Viho was enjoying himself, getting used to this marvelous trick. He couldn't stop. Twice more he performed it. Well, that's it for today, he said. Later, he came to a big village and wanted to impress the people with his powers. Would you believe it, cousins, he told them, that I can make my eyeballs jump out of my head, fly over to that tree, hang themselves from a branch, and come back when I tell them? The people, of course, didn't believe him. They laughed. Viho grew angry. It's true, he cried. You stupid people, I can do it. Show us, said the people. How often have I done this trick? Viho tried to remember. 4 times? No, the first time was only for practice. It doesn't count. I can still show these dummies something. And he commanded, eyeballs, hang yourselves on a branch of that tree. The eyeballs did, and a great cry of wonder and astonishment went up. There, you louts, didn't I tell you, said Viho, strutting around and puffing himself up. After a while, he said, all right, eyeballs, come back. But the eyeballs stayed up in the tree. Come back, you no good eyeballs, Viho cried again and again, but the eyeballs stayed put. Finally, a big fat cow lighted on that tree and gobbled them up. Good, said the cow. Very tasty. The people laughed at Viho, shook their heads, and went away. Viho was blind now. He didn't know what to do. He groped through the forest. He stumbled. He ran into trees. He sat down by a stone and cried. He heard a squeaking sound. It was a mouse calling other mice. Mouse, little mouse, cried Viho, I am blind. Please lend me one of your eyes so that I can see again. My eyes are tiny, answered the mouse, much too tiny. What good would one of them do you? It wouldn't fit. But Viho begged so pitifully that the mouse finally gave him an eye, saying, I guess I can get along with the other one. So Viho had one eye, but it was still very small indeed. What he saw was just a tiny speck of light. Still, it was better than nothing. Viho staggered on and met a buffalo. Buffalo brother, he begged. I have to get along with just this one tiny mouse eye. How can a big man like me make do with that? Have pity on me, brother, and lend me one of your big, beautiful eyes. What good would one of my eyes do you? Asked the buffalo. It's much too big for your eye hole. But Viho begged and wept and wheedled until the buffalo said, well, all right, I'll let you have one. I can't stand listening to you carrying on like that. I guess I can get by with one eye. And so Viho had his second eye. The buffalo's eye was much too big. It stuck out of its socket like a shiny ball boys like to play with. It made everything look twice as big as his own eyes had. And since the mouse eye saw everything 10 times smaller, Viho got a bad headache. But what could he do? It was better than being blind. It's a bad mess, though, said Viho. Viho went back to his wife and lodge. His wife looked at him. I believe your eyes are a little mismatched, she told him, and he described all that had happened to him. You know, she said, I think you should stop fooling around and trying to impress people with your tricks. I guess so, said Viho. Told by Richard Strange Owl in Bernie, Montana, 1971, and recorded by Richard Erdos. So what's that tell you? Just because you have a special power, and if you're going around and you abuse it, and yep.
Yeah. Yep, that is so true. Yep. Just, when you got power, you got to use it wisely. I mean, you can't just go out, well, look what I can do. Well, you know what? It doesn't serve you well if you overdo what you got it. You can't overdo it.
Right. And not only that, but at the beginning of the story, he's thinking, I get to be a medicine man and have this and on all the pretty girls too. And when it gets done and he's got, lopsided eyes, he goes back to his wife and his lodge. It's like, oh, well, I guess I go back to the old lady, Yep.
Yeah, that's kind of it too, Yeah.
All right, y'all. I'm shuffling. So whatever the intent for tonight is.
I got my intent set. Well, what do we got?
That was interesting. I pulled a card just for the heck of it, and it's Squirrel, and I think we read that one last week.
Probably, yeah.
But that it was on top of the deck.
A message carries through.
First card up, Wow. Armadillo.
Armadillo. We haven't had armadillo in a while.
Yeah, really. So, armadillo. Let me get my little book, grab my other pair of glasses here.
Do armadillos lay eggs? No.
No, they have youngins.
Okay.
And I got to say, they're cute little Dickenses, but when they get up and they dig holes in your yard and they tear up stuff, they're not cute anymore.
Don't have any armadillos here. So not in North Dakota.
Too many of them here.
Yeah, they like dig stuff. I remember going to Florida and seeing one, but that was about it. But yeah.
Armadillo is boundaries. Armadillo, armor all my boundaries. Teach me my shields. Reflect all the hurt, so I will not yield. Armadillo wears its armor on its back, its medicine a part of its body. Its boundaries of safety are a part of its total being. Armadillo can roll into a ball and never be penetrated by animals or by enemies. What a gift it is to set your boundaries so that harmful words or intentions just roll off. Your lesson is in setting up what you are willing to experience. If you do not wish to experience feeling invaded, just call on armadillo medicine. A clue to how to proceed is to make a circle on a piece of paper and see it as a medicine shield. In the body of the shield, write all that you desire to have or do or experience. Include all things that give you joy. This sets up boundaries that allow only these chosen experiences to be a part of your life. These boundaries become a shield that wards off the things that are undesirable for you. The shield reflects what you are and what your will is to others on an unconscious level. Outside of the shield, you may put what you are willing to experience by invitation only. For example, a visit from a long-lost relative or criticism from friends or people needing handouts. If armadillo is waddled into your cards you chose, it is time to define your space. You may have been too willing to let your home become a bus station. You may find that you cannot say no, even when you know that you will have to cancel plans to be obliging. This routine can get old in a hurry. It may be time to ask yourself the following questions. Number one, am I honoring the time I need for my own personal enjoyment? Number two, do others treat me like a doormat? Number three, why do I always get upset when I'm taken for granted? Number four, is there a reason for my being a yes person? Yes, I'll help you out. Yes, I can help save you. Yes, I can, do your homework for you. All of the answers to these questions relate to setting up boundaries. What you will and won't do. What makes you feel uncomfortable and what is comforting to you? How do you react in any circumstance has to do with your ability to be objective. I got to read that again. How you react in any circumstance has to do with your ability to be objective. That is a powerful sentence. I'm going to read it one more time. How you react in any circumstance has to do with your ability to be objective. You cannot be objective if you cannot tell where the other person's personality stops and where yours begins. If you have no boundaries, you're like a sponge. It will seem as if all the feelings in a room full of people must be yours. Ask yourself if you are really feeling depressed or if this feeling actually belongs to the person you're talking to. Then allow Armadillo's armor to slice in between, giving you back your sense of self. That's short and to the point.
Yes, it is. Well, you know, that's the thing too, is, you know, who doesn't feel like a yes person a lot of times? You know, you got to pull up those walls and boundaries, because otherwise, I know I've done that myself. Yeah, sure I will. Sure I will. And then you regret it later and you're like, why did I do that? I should have put walls and put standards in my life and said, no, I'm not going to do that. You know, I really don't want to do that. That's not what I want to do. I don't like that. I don't, you know, no. But a lot of times, no isn't in my vocabulary.
Yeah, it's in our nature though to try to get along with people, but you know, armadillo doesn't attack anything. It digs for grubs and stuff, you know, and so in that respect, but it's got a really hard armor. I mean, armadillos are tough, let me tell you. And they're blind as a bat. You can pretty much walk up on one. They will hear you before they can see you. But at the same time though, if you're acting like armadillo and you know what your armor is, you know, you gotta have enough chutzpah to stick to it. If it's in your no column, then say no. You know, you gotta have enough of, you know, guts to follow through on it, so you can say, well, I don't really like this, and then if you give in, you know, it's your own dang fault, you know.
Yep. I agree. And that's the thing, it leads people down the wrong road sometimes because they can't say no. They don't put up that armor. They are dictated by others because we don't I don't know if it's respect ourselves enough to say no. Is that not right?
Well, and the fact that we a lot of times we have not really set up our boundaries.
Yes.
Where, you know, well, I don't really like that, but I haven't said no, and here's somebody trying to drag me into it. And, you know, so, but, you know, if you're going to make your boundaries, then stick to it. You know, there might be those few instances, and I can't think of any at the moment, where you might, you know, want to step out of your boundary, you know. Extenuating circumstances, you know.
Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. But sometimes people think like everything's an extenuating circumstance,
right? And you must be at their beck and call no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. Gets people in trouble. Or you're like, why am I doing this? Oh, I don't know how many times I've helped somebody move and go, why am I doing this? Or again, like it's the 15th time these people moved, and every time I give them a hand, or they call and say, you know, can I borrow a few bucks? And then you go, why am I borrowing? And I never get paid back. You know, or something stupid. You know, you've done that to people.
Yeah.
You know, people like that, and you think, you know, it's all right. And just never. You're thinking, why shouldn't I just say no? I'm enabling, and I'm an enabler.
Yeah,
you know?
An enabler, absolutely. But at the same time, we try to feel that, you know, that folks would, if I borrowed $20, I'm going to pay you back. But other people, let me borrow $20, and it just slips their mind, like, but it was only $20. You know, if I borrowed $20, it's going to weigh on me until I pay that thing back, you know. Other people, what? I owe you $20. Well, it was only $20, you know, like, you can forgive me because I'm not going to pay you back, or I don't have it. You know, it's attitude. But anyway, so we've been here for 2 hours.
2 hours, 3 minutes.
Almost, we started late, but, you know, so 2 hours. So
2 hours. Yes.
I mean, I know we've sort of made a promise to not go longer.
That's true. That's true. Well, we did real good. It was a great night. I think we learned a lot and had some great stories. And thank you for coming again, being my great co-host as always. And we will be back next week for another Native Americans, myths and legends. And let's see what else. Oh yeah, I'll be back on Saturday, and don't forget to catch the shirts all week long. Remember, go out and be the frequency you want to receive.
Cheers, everybody.
I love you all, everybody. Peace, everybody. Have a good one. And there we go.